I still remember standing on the dock with the ocean breeze brushing against my face. My family's laughter echoed from the upper deck of the ship as they boarded without me. They thought they had left me behind as a joke. But what they didn't know was that in just a few moments, the chief officer would step forward, salute, and loudly say, "Welcome aboard, Captain." That's when their jaws dropped. If you're already hooked, make sure you like this post and drop a comment. Don't forget we share more juicy revenge stories like this all the time. But don't bother subscribing to our YouTube unless you're really about that petty justice. Now let me tell you who I am and how we got here. My name is Madison. I'm 27 years old, born and raised in the quiet, low-profile Ridge Plain estates. I spent most of my childhood being overlooked by my own family, until I made them look up and never forget. Growing up, I was always the invisible one. My mom, Donna, loved to boast about my older brother, Travis, who she said was born to lead. My younger sister, Kayla, had the kind of beauty that got her out of trouble, even when she stole, lied, or cheated. And me? I was just the weird middle child who talked too much about boats, engines, and maps. They teased me when I played with my model ships instead of dolls. They laughed when I said I wanted to be a cruise ship captain someday. "You'll be lucky to work in housekeeping," Kayla once smirked. At the time, those words stung more than I let on. But I just smiled and kept studying marine systems, navigation, and communication tech. I worked summer jobs cleaning docks and mopping cruise decks, while Travis traveled Europe on Dad's dime and Kayla got spa days for good behavior. By the time I was 22, I had finished my maritime training and started working my way up the chain on small passenger ships. My family never noticed, never asked, never cared. Then came Grandma Eloise's birthday, her big 75th. She had one request: a full family cruise on the majestic Sea Monarch, one of the newest ships in the Atlantic Fleet. Grandma was the only one who ever believed in me, who saw me as something more than middle child Madison. She told everyone she wanted the whole family there. I was excited. I even cleared my schedule and submitted for leave, despite being in line for a promotion. But the invitation never came. 1 week before the cruise, I found out from a Facebook post that they were all going. Mom, Dad, Travis, Kayla, their partners, even my cousins from Wisconsin. But not me. I called Mom. "Hey, I just saw the post. You guys are going on the Sea Monarch." "Oh yeah," she said slowly. "Well, we weren't sure if you could afford it. These cruises aren't cheap." "I could have covered it," I said, my voice shaking. "I wanted to go. For Grandma." There was a pause. "Madison, don't make this about you. It's just a cruise." It wasn't just a cruise. It was a celebration. It was a family moment. And they didn't want me there. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. But something inside me cracked, and not in a weak way. I smiled, because what they didn't know was I had just been approved as relief captain for the Sea Monarch. A surprise placement due to the original captain needing emergency leave. I wasn't just going on the cruise. I was going to run it. For the next few days, I kept my head down and my mouth shut. I didn't update my socials. I didn't tell anyone in the family. Even Grandma didn't know. It would be her surprise, too. The morning of the cruise, I got to the ship hours before departure, dressed in full uniform, my white coat crisp, gold pins gleaming. I walked past the boarding crowds and straight into the bridge. The crew greeted me professionally. They had no idea about my personal ties to the passenger list. To them, I was simply Captain Madison Harper, 27, certified, respected, and fully in charge. I settled into the captain's quarters with a smile on my face. At 9:30 a.m., passenger boarding began. I stayed out of sight on the bridge, watching through the cameras as my family walked up the gangway. Mom was wearing her giant sun hat. Travis had on expensive sunglasses. Kayla was doing a vlog, showing off the ship's luxury. None of them had a clue. The final boarding call came at 10:45. I waited just long enough to let them think I'd been left behind, maybe even crying at home like I always did. Then I stepped out onto the upper deck. The crew lined up to greet the captain in front of the main balcony. I made my way through them, heart pounding but face calm. I was ready. That's when the chief officer stood tall, faced the deck, and announced in a booming voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome aboard your crew's captain, Captain Madison Harper." Everything went silent. All eyes turned. My family froze mid-laughter. Kayla's phone dropped from her hand. Mom's mouth hung open. Travis took off his sunglasses, slowly, like his eyes were playing tricks on him. I walked straight past them without a glance. Straight to the podium. "Thank you, Officer Grant," I said. "I'd like to welcome everyone aboard the Sea Monarch. We're scheduled to depart in 15 minutes. Make sure to review the safety protocols and enjoy your journey." Then I turned and made eye contact with my mother. Her face had turned pale, like all the sun had drained out of her skin. She looked like she had seen a ghost. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. I simply nodded, then walked away. That moment, that was the first hit. But don't think it ended there. Oh no. They still had 6 full days of this cruise left, with me in charge of everything. After the official welcome, I returned to the bridge and watched them from the cameras. Mom was still frozen. Travis looked angry. Kayla was muttering, trying to figure out how this had happened. Later that evening, we had the welcome dinner in the Grand Ocean Hall. I made sure my family got a table at the center, directly under the massive chandelier with the best view. Of course, I also made sure they had a new waiter every 20 minutes, each one asking politely, "Would you like to send compliments to the captain?" At one point, Kayla tried to send back her lobster. "I'm sorry, miss," the waiter said sweetly, "but the captain personally selected tonight's menu." They couldn't escape me. Not on this ship. But I still had to keep it professional. I didn't want to ruin Grandma's birthday. She deserved her moment. So I waited until the next day. That's when I heard something that made my blood boil. In the crew corridor near the spa, I overheard Travis talking to a steward. He was complaining loudly about the child playing dress-up as captain. "I'm sure it's some internship program," he laughed. "She probably begged them to let her wear the uniform." The steward didn't respond. He knew exactly who I was. But I wasn't angry. Not really. Because the next day we had a formal tour scheduled. A private behind-the-scenes tour of the bridge and the ship's controls for selected guests. Guess who had signed up? Travis, Kayla, Mom, even Dad. They thought they'd get to meet the real captain. Shake hands. Maybe even take a picture. I confirmed the tour group personally. And I made sure I'd be there to greet them. Waiting. Right inside the control room. Next to the ship's controls. Wearing my hat. Arms folded. Smile sharp as a dagger. And when they walked in, oh, you should have seen their faces. But that wasn't the extreme part. No, that came next. Because just as they stepped forward, trying to recover, trying to act like this was no big deal, the fire alarm blared. Real. Loud. Urgent. The ship jolted. Lights flickered. And the crew jumped into action. We had a real emergency. One that only I could handle. And now they were stuck inside the control room, watching me take full command. The alarm was deafening. Red lights flashed across the control room as the crew sprang into action. My family stood frozen by the door, eyes wide like deer caught in headlights. For a second, no one moved. Then my voice cut through the chaos. "Officer Grant, get an update from the lower deck. Officer Lee, verify the engine status. Engage emergency protocol. Status amber." The team snapped into motion. They didn't question me. They didn't look for another leader. Because on this ship, I was the one in charge. Mom stumbled back against the wall. Kayla's mouth was hanging open, and Travis actually muttered, "What the?" It wasn't a drill. There was real smoke on deck 4, some kind of electrical issue near the crew laundry area. Not dangerous, but serious enough that we had to lock down certain parts of the ship until the system cleared. I grabbed the mic. All guests, please remain in your cabins or public areas. We are conducting a safety procedure. There is no danger at this time. Repeat, no danger. My voice echoed across every speaker on the Sea Monarch. Calm, steady, confident. I saw the moment it hit my mom. Her eyes shifted from panic to realization. This wasn't a game. I wasn't pretending. I was the captain, and they were stuck watching me handle it. Officer Grant status, I called out. Contained fire. Automatic systems extinguished it. No injuries. Engineers are running a full diagnostic now. Good, said. Once the system confirms, lift the lockdown on Deck 4 and clear it for ventilation. We'll resume normal activity within the hour. The moment passed. The crew relaxed. The alarm stopped. I took a breath, then turned slowly toward my family, who were still pressed together by the entrance, looking like they'd seen a ghost. Well, I said, brushing invisible dust off my shoulder. That was interesting. Kayla broke first. Wait, this isn't some internship, is it? I raised an eyebrow. Internship? I've been a certified maritime officer for 4 years. Got my captain clearance last month. You know, around the time y'all were planning this little family getaway without me. Mom tried to smile. Madison, honey, we didn't mean anything by it. Didn't mean anything? I cut her off. You knew Grandma wanted the whole family here. You just didn't want me here. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. Silence. I looked at all 3 of them. You've ignored everything I've worked for, laughed at my dreams, left me out of every celebration. But now you're standing on a ship that answers to me. Then I stepped aside and motioned toward the door. Tour's over. They shuffled out, awkward and silent, like kids getting sent to detention. Officer Grant gave me a look. He didn't say anything, but the respect in his eyes said enough. I returned to the bridge. That night, I walked the ship alone during the calm sea hours. The stars reflected off the water like 1,000 broken mirrors. I should have felt proud, triumphant, but all I felt was tired. They were still my family. As much as I wanted revenge, something about it stung. Then I got the message. A steward handed me a folded napkin during the late dinner shift. From Grandma. Come see me. Room 507. I knocked gently that night. She opened the door with a soft smile. I knew it, she said. The moment the ship moved so smooth, I said, that's Maddie's work. I laughed a little, letting the nickname warm my chest. Why didn't you tell anyone? She asked, leading me inside. I wanted them to see me for who I really am. Without warning, without filters, just me. Grandma nodded slowly. They're not ready for who you are, sweetheart. But I am, and I'm so proud of you. She reached over and hugged me, tight and real. Don't waste too much energy being angry, she whispered. Just keep being excellent. That's how you win. We talked until midnight about my training, my path, my future. She didn't once ask about Mom or the others. The next morning, things were different. At breakfast, Mom didn't look me in the eye. Travis gave a stiff nod. Kayla acted like she had a cold. I didn't care. I walked through the dining hall in full uniform. Other guests greeted me warmly. Some even clapped, having heard I handled the incident during the tour. One little girl ran up and asked for a picture. She said, "You're the first girl captain I ever met." I knelt down and smiled. "And you can be one too." She beamed. That moment felt like gold in my chest. But just as I stood up, I noticed something. A quiet conversation happening near the pool deck. Mom, Travis, Kayla, and Dad, huddled together, whispering fast and angry. I knew that look. I'd seen it before, back when they were trying to get Grandma to change her will. They were scheming. Again. Later that day, I got confirmation. Officer Grant approached me privately. "Captain, I don't mean to pry, but your family? They tried to pull some strings." I raised a brow. What kind of strings? They asked for access to the VIP deck. Said you'd approve it. I felt my jaw clench. I told them only command staff have access to that floor, including your private quarters. They didn't like that. Of course they didn't. They couldn't handle the fact that I outranked them now. They were looking for a way to knock me down, to remind themselves they were better, smarter, more important. But this wasn't their house. It was my ship, and I was just getting started. That night, the storm rolled in. Real waves, real wind. Not dangerous, but rough enough to rock the ship. Guests were advised to stay indoors. The crew prepped for turbulence. And me? I had a little plan of my own. One that would remind my family and everyone else on board exactly who was in charge. As the ship swayed and thunder rumbled outside, I made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow morning we'll be hosting a special captain's breakfast on the sky deck, exclusive to our leadership guests and family members. I look forward to seeing you all. Then I signed it. Captain Madison Harper. Mom would never turn that down. Travis would smell opportunity. Kayla would want another selfie. They'd come. And when they did, they'd walk straight into the next chapter of my revenge. Because what I had planned for breakfast would shake them to their spoiled, selfish core. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and purple when the sun began to rise. The storm had passed during the night, leaving behind calm waters and a salty breeze that whispered promises of change. It was the perfect morning for the plan I had been quietly crafting. The sky deck sparkled. White linens covered round tables, each set with crystal glasses and polished silverware. Crew members bustled about, setting down platters of fresh fruit, golden waffles, and pitchers of orange juice. Everything was pristine, elegant, and unmistakably first class. I stood by the captain's table, dressed in full uniform. The gold buttons gleamed, and my nameplate, Captain Madison Harper, was clearly visible on my chest. Officer Grant walked over, holding a clipboard. The breakfast setup is complete, Captain. Your guests are arriving shortly. Perfect, I said with a small smile. Exactly on cue. I spotted them, Mom, Dad, Travis, and Kayla, ascending the wide staircase onto the sky deck. They were dressed like they belonged on a magazine cover. Mom wore her most expensive sunglasses and a flowy white dress. Dad had on a blazer, even though the sun was already heating the air. Kayla was filming herself on her phone, whispering, "VIP breakfast with the captain." If only they knew. They didn't see me yet. They were too busy gawking at the setting. I could already hear Mom say, "Now this is more like it," and Travis muttering about finally getting the treatment they deserved. They took their seats at the table, marked, reserved for family of the captain. A few other guests trickled in, diplomats, business owners, and special invitees who had supported the cruise line for years. Important people, people who had earned their places. The last to arrive was Grandma. She walked slowly, her silver curls bouncing gently with each step. When she reached me, she didn't say anything, just squeezed my hand and winked. Then I stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Good morning, everyone," I said. "Thank you for joining us on this beautiful day. I'm honored to welcome you to the captain's breakfast. I hope you're enjoying your time on the Sea Monarch." I paused, letting my voice settle over the deck. I'd like to take a moment to recognize some very special people here today. Guests who have shown remarkable loyalty, respect, and kindness. Qualities we value more than anything on this ship. My eyes scanned the deck. They stopped on my family's table. Mom was smiling like she was about to be crowned queen. Kayla had her phone pointed straight at me. Travis leaned forward in his seat. "But today," I continued, "we're also here to address something else, accountability." A hush fell over the deck. I turned to the crewman beside me. "Officer Lee, would you please bring out the footage?" The large outdoor monitor flickered to life. I had spent the past night collecting clips, security footage, audio logs, even bits of Kayla's own live streams. They all played in perfect sequence. Travis trying to bribe Officer Grant, for VIP access. Mom lying to the concierge about having special approval from the captain. Kayla complaining on camera about how I should just stay behind the scenes. Then came the part that turned every head on the deck. Footage of them in the dining hall, mocking the captain. Mocking me. Mom's voice loud and clear. She might be captain, but she's still just Maddie. She was always average. Dad, this ship's lucky we're even here. She should be thanking us. Then silence. The camera zoomed in on their table. Their faces had drained of color. Kayla's phone slowly lowered to her lap. Travis looked like he wanted to vanish into his seat. I held the mic steady. For years, I was treated like the outcast. I was mocked, excluded, and made to feel less than. My own family refused to support my dreams. They left me behind while they enjoyed vacations and milestones. I paused again, this time letting the weight of the moment settle over everyone. But the truth is, I didn't need their approval. I made it here by working harder than anyone, by earning my stripes. And now, as the captain of the ship, I decide who gets the privilege of access. I motioned to Officer Lee, who stepped forward with a sealed envelope. Effective immediately, the following guests are no longer authorized for VIP access. He opened the envelope and read out, Mr. Travis Harper, Ms. Kayla Harper, Mrs. Jenna Harper, Mr. Douglas Harper. There was a sharp intake of breath across the deck. Mom stood up, furious. Madison, how dare you humiliate us like this? I raised an eyebrow. Funny, Mom. I could ask the same thing. How dare you treat your own daughter like she wasn't worth a seat at the table? Kayla tried to defend herself. I didn't know those clips were being recorded. That's not fair. I held up my hand. Fair? You think fairness is about what's on camera? No. It's about how you treat people when no one's watching. And all I ever asked for was respect. Dad said nothing. His face was stone. He'd always been the quiet one, letting Mom do the talking. But I saw the shame in his eyes. The rest of the guests didn't say a word. They didn't need to. The message was clear. Actions have consequences. I stepped aside as Officer Lee approached their table. Captain's orders, he said gently. You'll be escorted back to your standard rooms now. Mom sputtered. You can't do this. We're family. I looked her straight in the eye. Family lifts each other up, not tears them down. The silence that followed was deafening. They stood slowly and walked away, heads down, past the important guests and crew, past Grandma, who didn't even glance at them. And me? I stood there and watched. Not out of pride, not even satisfaction, but with clarity. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure no one else like me ever felt small again. I turned to the crowd. Now then, who's hungry? Laughter rippled through the guests. The crew returned to serving breakfast. Music played softly. Grandma raised her glass in a small toast, and others followed. As I sat down to eat, surrounded by the people who mattered, I felt something shift. I was no longer the girl they tried to forget. I was the captain of my fate. But deep in my gut, I knew this wasn't over. Because people like my family, they don't give up when their pride is bruised. They plot. And as the sun climbed higher over the calm sea, I had a strange feeling. They were planning something bigger. And next time, they wouldn't just try to sneak into a breakfast. They'd aim for something much more dangerous. It started with silence. No texts, no voicemails, no social media posts, not even a passive-aggressive email from Mom. For 3 full days after the captain's breakfast, my family completely disappeared. And that made me nervous, because silence from them wasn't peace. It was a warning. Still, I kept running the ship like usual. There were over 5,000 guests on board, and I had a responsibility to all of them. I couldn't let my personal drama get in the way of my job. But I also wasn't stupid. I asked Officer Grant to quietly monitor my family's key card movements. I wanted to know where they were, who they were speaking to, and whether they were causing problems with the crew. They've been keeping to their rooms for the most part, he told me late one night. Except for yesterday, they met with a guest named Owen Miller. I narrowed my eyes. Owen Miller. That name sounds familiar. He's one of our VIPs. Hedge fund guy. Rich, powerful, not exactly friendly. It hit me then. Owen Miller was a friend of my father's from way back. The kind of guy who liked backdoor deals and owed favors to dangerous people. Why were they meeting? My gut tightened. The next day, we were scheduled to dock in Bermuda. It was one of our most luxurious stops, a private resort island owned by our cruise company. Guests could swim in private lagoons, ride jet skis, or attend a sunset beach dinner with live music. Security was usually tight, and everything was carefully organized. But something about this stop felt off. We anchored in calm waters just before noon. The sun blazed high, the sea was crystal clear, and the crew moved like clockwork. But I couldn't shake the itch under my skin. That's when Grant came rushing onto the bridge. "Captain, you need to see this." He handed me a tablet. On screen was live drone footage from our security team on the island. My heart sank. There was my family, Mom, Dad, Travis, and Kayla, standing near the main guest lounge on the island, with Owen Miller and two other men I didn't recognize. All five were talking fast, pointing at blueprints laid across a beach table. "Zoom in," I ordered. The drone feed adjusted. My stomach turned. The blueprints weren't for a building or guest event. They were for the Sea Monarch, my ship. They were planning something. And whatever it was, it involved the inner workings of the vessel. I called an Officer Lee. "I want 2 agents tracking them on that island. Do not engage. Just observe and report." "Aye, Captain." He left immediately. I tried to act normal for the rest of the day. Greeted guests. Shook hands. Oversaw logistics. Smiled through dinner with the CEO of the cruise company. All while my thoughts burned behind my eyes. That night, after the guests returned from the island, Grant reported in again. They came back carrying a sealed case. No one saw what's inside, and they've requested early disembarkation in Miami, 2 days from now. "They're running," I said, "or planning something before they go." I nodded. "Either way, we need answers." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I disguised myself in casual clothes, plain shirt, sunglasses, baseball cap, and went down to Deck 6. That's where my family's rooms were located. I waited. At 10:12 a.m., Kayla stepped out with her phone pressed to her ear, mumbling about uploading files before the captain finds out. Bingo. I followed her quietly until she ducked into the internet cafe. She took a seat in the corner booth, plugged in a USB stick, and began typing fast. I slipped behind a vending machine and opened my private radio line to the bridge. "This is Captain Harper. Lock down the internet cafe. Kayla Harper is attempting unauthorized data transfer." 2 minutes later, security arrived. She screamed when they took the USB stick, flailing like a child. "You can't do this. I have rights. This is harassment. You're interfering with cruise security operations," I said as I stepped forward and removed my hat. "And that's a federal offense." The look on her face was priceless. You're not allowed to." "I'm the captain. I can do a lot more than you think." She was escorted out. That evening, I reviewed the USB contents in the command room. What I found nearly made me throw up. The files were logs. Not just maps of the ship, but digital records of our security systems, staff schedules, cargo storage zones, even the engine schematics. Sensitive documents that only a captain or upper-level officer could access. Except they weren't downloaded from our system. They were screenshots of my personal device. Somebody had hacked me, and I knew exactly who it was. The night of the captain's breakfast, I had left my tablet on the bridge while greeting guests. It had been unattended for less than 10 minutes. Enough time for someone with access to copy its contents. But the question remained, why? What was my family trying to do with that kind of information? Were they trying to damage the ship? Sell secrets? Blackmail the cruise line? Then it hit me like a brick wall. Insurance. If they could stage a security failure or major system breach, they could claim millions of dollars in damages through legal connections, pretending to be victims. They'd paint me as incompetent, maybe even reckless. And with Owen Miller's financial backing, they had the means to pull it off. This wasn't petty revenge anymore. It was criminal. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. We had less than 48 hours before we reached Miami. That's when they'd disappear into the city, taking whatever damage they caused with them, and leaving me to face the consequences, unless I acted fast. The next day, I arranged a private dinner meeting with the CEO of the cruise company, Mr. Alan Whitmore. He was a stern man, early 60s, white hair, and eyes that saw through people like glass. He listened in silence as I laid out everything, starting from the captain's breakfast to the stolen data. When I finished, he asked one question. "Can you stop them?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. He nodded once. "Then do it. You have my full support." Quietly, I walked out of that room with two things: a loaded security team ready to follow my orders, and full authority to deal with any threat. That night, I issued a quiet lockdown on Deck 6. All movements were monitored, all key cards tracked. My family didn't know it yet, but their time was running out. And that's when the most unexpected thing happened. Grandma came to my quarters, holding something in her hand. A notebook. She sat down across from me and said, "Your mom kept this when you were little. I thought you should have it." I opened the notebook slowly. Inside were pages of my childhood drawings, crayons, stick figures, dreams, and in one corner, a drawing of a little girl in a captain's hat, labeled me. One day, tears welled in my eyes. "I always believed in you," Grandma said softly. "They just didn't want you to believe in yourself." "I'll fix this," I promised. "All of it." She stood to leave, but just before she stepped out, she whispered, "Be careful. Your mama's got nothing to lose." She was right, and when I checked the security cam one last time before bed, I saw them. Mom, Dad, Travis, and Kayla opening the sealed case from the island. Inside were wires and a blinking device. My mouth went dry. This wasn't about insurance money anymore. They were going to sabotage the ship, and the countdown had already begun. I froze in place, eyes locked on the security footage. The blinking device in their hands was unmistakably a jammer, military grade. Something that didn't just disrupt Wi-Fi or radio signals, but could knock out entire systems temporarily if used close enough to the ship's core networks. If they used that thing during navigation, we could veer off course. If they hit us during port entry in Miami, we could crash. And if they targeted the engine room, I didn't even want to finish the thought. I called Officer Grant immediately. "We've got a jammer on board. I need eyes on room 603 and all connected cabins. Don't spook them yet. We wait until they move it." "Copy, Captain." I sat back in my chair, my heart racing. Every part of me screamed to storm down there, confront them, arrest them myself. But I couldn't act out of emotion. Not now. I had to be precise. They had 2 days until we reached Miami. 2 days to make their move. I had less than that to stop them. The next morning, I ordered a full security sweep disguised as a routine safety drill. My crew inspected every floor, every hallway, every storage area. I joined them personally on Deck 6, pretending to check emergency exit lights and sprinkler lines, all while watching my family from a distance. They acted normal. Too normal. Smiling. Laughing with guests. Even taking a family photo in front of the casino entrance. It was all fake, but I noticed something. The case was gone. That meant they had moved the device. I pulled Grant aside. "Where's the case?" He tapped his tablet, scanning camera feeds. "They handed it to Travis this morning." He went down toward Engineering Access B. "That's right above the engine room. My mouth went dry again. They were going to plant the jammer in the one place it could do the most damage, our main engine controls. If triggered at the wrong moment, it could cause a total shutdown, which, in open water, would leave us drifting vulnerable, helpless. I didn't waste time. "Seal off engineering access B," I ordered. "I want every hallway camera on live feed. If Travis goes near it again, we take him." And then, almost like the universe had been listening, an announcement came through the bridge intercom. "Captain Harper, we have a situation in the guest ballroom. Your presence is requested immediately." I rushed there without hesitation. When I arrived, I found chaos. Hundreds of guests had gathered for a pre-Miami Gala event, a dance with live music and champagne. But standing at the center of the ballroom was Kayla, screaming at one of the waitresses. "She spilled on my dress. I demand compensation." The young waitress looked terrified. "I didn't. She bumped into me, I swear." My fists clenched. Kayla was creating a scene to pull me away. I forced a smile and walked into the spotlight. "Is there a problem?" "She ruined my gown." Kayla cried, turning on the dramatics. "This is thousands of dollars. I want her fired." I looked at the stain. It was barely noticeable, just a splash of soda water. "Kayla," I said calmly, "we can resolve this without theatrics. Come with me." But she wasn't done. "She should be punished. I know you think you're some queen of this boat, but you're just a—" I didn't let her finish. "Security," I said firmly. 2 guards stepped forward. Kayla's eyes widened as they gently took her arms. "You can't. What is this?" "We're placing you under temporary cabin confinement. You violated the guest conduct code and interfered with ship operations." "What?" "You're being removed from all social areas until we reach Miami." I walked away as she kicked and screamed, just like she did when we were kids and Mom took away her phone. But it worked. While the crowd was distracted, I got an update from Grant. "Travis just tried to enter engineering access B with the case. We stopped him. He claimed it was a wedding gift for someone on staff. And the jammer? Still in the case. We have it. Secure it and detain him." Now I had both Kayla and Travis out of play, but Mom and Dad were still free, and I knew they were up to something else. Later that evening, I checked the surveillance again. My parents weren't in their cabin. They weren't in the dining hall, casino, gym, or spa. They weren't even on the public decks. But then, at 11:37 p.m., a new alert pinged. Someone had accessed my private bridge elevator with a stolen keycard. I bolted. By the time I reached the bridge, security was already inside. Dad stood there, staring out through the window toward the ocean, hands behind his back. I stepped in and closed the door behind me. "Looking for something?" He turned slowly. "You know, I thought if I got here first, I'd feel something. Pride, maybe. Like I was finally standing where I should have been." "You're trespassing." He smirked. "No, I'm reclaiming what should have been mine." I scoffed. "You gave up any right to that when you sold our family out for a loan and disappeared. That loan paid your college tuition. You abandoned me." He took a step forward. "You really think being captain makes you better than us? You're just a girl playing dress-up. That uniform doesn't make you strong. It hides how weak you are." I stared at him. This was the man I used to beg for approval. The man I cried over when he skipped my graduation. The man who let my mother tear me down for years. And now here he was, standing on my bridge, calling me weak. I stepped closer until we were eye to eye. "I earned every stripe on this uniform. I worked through stormy seas, sleepless nights, and years of training while you were busy faking business deals and blaming others. I'm not the one who's weak." For a second, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Shame? Regret? It didn't matter. I nodded to security. "Escort Mr. Harper to his cabin. Confine both parents under 24-hour surveillance. No further movement allowed. As they pulled him away, he growled, "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "I think I'll sleep just fine tonight." The bridge was quiet again. I sat in the captain's chair, let out a deep breath, and watched the sea. One day to Miami. One day until this nightmare was finally over. But just when I thought it was safe, my radio buzzed. "Captain, you need to see this. One of the kitchen staff just found something taped under the food elevator." "What is it?" "A second device. Another jammer," which meant there was someone else. Someone on my crew. And I had less than 24 hours to find out who. I stared at the small screen in my hand, my heart pounding again. The second jammer was smaller, more compact, but just as dangerous. It had been expertly hidden under the freight lift that ran between the galley and the crew supply deck. Whoever planted it had knowledge of the ship's blueprint. This wasn't just a case of bitter family drama anymore. It was sabotage, and someone on my crew had helped them. I gathered my senior officers in the briefing room. The mood was tense. The crew all respected me, but I could tell they were confused. A second jammer, a family in confinement, a captain with a last name match to the suspects. I had to tread carefully. "We've located a second illegal device," I told them. "I believe there is an internal accomplice." Murmurs rippled through the room. "We have 12 hours until we dock in Miami. I want background checks rerun on every recent crew hire, all internal access logs pulled, and no one, not even kitchen hands, moving unescorted without clearance." "Captain," Grant said, "what if it's someone senior?" I paused. Then I looked around the room, and it hit me. 2 weeks ago, the second officer, Alex Barnes, had recommended the galley lift for cargo overflow. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but he was also the one who approved temporary visitor access when my family boarded, without my permission. I glanced at Grant again. "Where's Barnes?" "Sleeping. His shift starts at 6. "Wake him. Bring him here." 10 minutes later, Alex Barnes sat across from me, looking tired but smug. "Captain Harper, is there a problem?" "You tell me. You signed off on guest access to my family against protocol. You suggested the galley lift, and you had access to both jammers' installation points." He smirked. "Coincidence?" I leaned forward. "One more lie, and I'll have you arrested for conspiracy and sabotage." His smirk faded. Then, just like that, the facade cracked. He laughed quietly. "You think you're so righteous, captain of your little floating castle." I said nothing. "I helped them because you needed a lesson. You think success erases the past, but it doesn't. You stepped on people to get here." I blinked. "I don't even know you." "No, but my sister worked under you at your last post. She got fired after failing an inspection you reported. She lost everything. That explained it. Revenge. Not just family revenge, but layered and festering from all sides." "Security," I said, standing. "Detain him. Full lockup until Miami." As he was dragged away, he yelled, "This ship will fall. You're not safe. None of you are." We spent the next few hours sweeping the ship top to bottom. I personally checked the navigation systems, propulsion room, engine backups, and satellite relays. All clear. The jammers had not been activated. The crew was shaken but loyal, and most of all alert. By sunrise, we reached Miami shore. The skyline glowed like a crown in the morning light, golden and peaceful. The harbor was full of ships, all waiting for their turn to dock. I walked out onto the upper deck, crisp uniform pressed, hat perfectly balanced, heart steady. And there they were, my family, flanked by security in handcuffs now. The authorities waited on the dock, FBI, Coast Guard, local police. They'd been briefed in full. Kayla still wore her expensive sunglasses like it made her important. Travis wouldn't look at me. Dad muttered curses under his breath. And my mom? She had the nerve to smile. "You'll regret this, Zoey. Families forgive. The world will turn on you when they find out. But I ignored them. I had one final duty. As the boarding ramp lowered and the harbor team prepared the ceremonial exit, the chief dock officer stepped forward, loudspeaker in hand, ready to welcome our ship with its captain present. The guests gathered around, waiting. Phones out, cameras rolling. And then he said the words I'd waited a lifetime to hear. "Welcome back, Captain." The crowd erupted into cheers. My crew saluted. The dock officer extended his hand toward me as I stepped off the ship. And my family? They finally understood. This wasn't their ship. This wasn't their legacy. It was mine. And no amount of sabotage or scheming could take it away from me now. As they were led off behind me in cuffs, all they could do was watch while the world clapped for the daughter they tried to destroy. Revenge didn't need me to scream. All I had to do was succeed.